"Of course will I," said Wilson. Buck rose again impulsively. "Your Majesty," he said, glowing with popularity, "I beseech your Majesty to consider favourably the proposal to which we have committed ourselves. Your Majesty's leniency, our own offers, have fallen in vain on that extraordinary man. He may be right, he may be God, he may be the devil, but we think it for practical purposes more probable that he is off his head. Unless that assumption were acted on, all human affairs would go to pieces. We act on it, and we propose to start operations at Notting Hill at once." The King leaned back in his chair. "The Charter of the Cities," he said with a rich intonation. But Buck, being finally serious, was also cautious, and did not again make the mistake of disrespect. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing, "I am not here to say a word against anything your Majesty has said or done. You are a far better educated man than I, and no doubt there were reasons upon intellectual grounds for those proceedings. But may I ask you, and appeal to your common good nature for a sincere answer? When you drew up the Charter of the Cities, did you contemplate the rise of a man like Adam Wayne? Did you expect that the Charter, whether it was an experiment or a scheme of decoration or a joke, could ever really come to this, to stopping a vast scheme of ordinary business, to shut up a road, to spoiling the chances of cabs, omnibuses, railway stations, to disorganising half a city, to risking a kind of civil war? Whatever were your objects, were they that?" Barker and Wilson looked at him admiringly, the King more admiringly still. "Provost Buck," said Auberon, "you speak in public uncommonly well. I give you your point with the magnanimity of an artist. My scheme did not include the appearance of Mr. Wayne. Alas, would that my poetic power had been great enough!" "I thank your Majesty," said Buck courteously and quickly. "Your Majesty's statements are always clear and studied. Therefore I may draw a deduction. As the scheme, whatever it was on which you set your heart, did not include the appearance of Mr. Wayne, it will survive his removal. Why not let us clear away this particular Pump Street, which does interfere with our plans, and which does not, by your Majesty's own statement, interfere with yours?" "Caught out," said the King, enthusiastically and quite impersonally, as if he were watching a cricket match. "This man Wayne," continued Buck, "would be shut up by any doctors in England, but we only ask to have it put before them. Meanwhile, no one's interests, not even in all probability his own, can really be damaged by going on with the improvements in Notting Hill. Not our interests, of course, for it has been the hard and quiet work of 10 years. Not the interests of Notting Hill, for nearly all its educated inhabitants desire the change. Not the interests of your Majesty, for you say, with characteristic sense, that you never contemplated the rise of a lunatic at all. Not, as I say, his own interests, for the man has a kind heart and many talents, and a couple of good doctors would probably put him righter than all the free cities and sacred mountains in creation. I therefore assume, if I may use so bold a word, that your Majesty will not offer any obstacle to our proceeding with the improvements." And Mr. Buck sat down amid subdued but excited applause among his allies. "Mr. Buck," said the King, "I beg your pardon for a number of beautiful and sacred thoughts in which you were generally classified as a fool. But there is another thing to be considered. Suppose you send in your workmen, and Mr. Wayne does a thing regrettable indeed, but of which I am sorry to say I think him quite capable, knocks their teeth out." "I have thought of that, your Majesty," said Mr. Buck easily. "I think it can simply be guarded against. Let us send in a strong guard of, say, 100 men. 100 of the North Kensington halberdiers," he smiled grimly, "of whom your Majesty is so fond. Or say 150. The whole population of Pump Street, I fancy, is only about 100. "Still, they might stand together and lick you," said the King dubiously. "Then say 200," said Buck gaily. "It might happen," said the King restlessly, "that one Notting Hiller fought better than 2 North Kensingtons." "It might," said Buck coolly. "Then say 250." The King bit his lip. "And if they are beaten too?" he said viciously. "Your Majesty," said Buck, and leaned back easily in his chair, "suppose they are. If anything be clear, it is clear that all fighting matters are mere matters of arithmetic. Here we have 150, say, of Notting Hill soldiers, or say 200. If one of them can fight two of us, we can send in not 400 but 600 and smash them. That is all. It is out of all immediate probability that one of them could fight four of us. So what I say is this: run no risks. Finish it at once. Send in 800 men and smash him. Smash him almost without seeing him, and go on with the improvements." And Mr. Buck pulled out a bandana and blew his nose. "Do you know, Mr. Buck," said the King, staring gloomily at the table, "the admirable clearness of your reason produces in my mind a sentiment which I trust shall not offend you, by describing it as an aspiration to punch your head. You irritate me sublimely. What can it be in me? Is it the relic of a moral sense?" "But your Majesty," said Barker, eagerly and suavely, "does not refuse our proposals." "My dear Barker, your proposals are as damnable as your manners. I want to have nothing to do with them. Suppose I stopped them altogether, what would happen?" Barker answered in a very low voice, "Revolution." The King glanced quickly at the men round the table. They were all looking down silently. Their brows were red. He rose with a startling suddenness and an unusual pallor. "Gentlemen," he said, "you have overruled me. Therefore I can speak plainly. I think Adam Wayne, who is as mad as a hatter, worth more than 1,000,000 of you. But you have the force, and I admit the common sense, and he is lost. Take your 800 halberdiers and smash him. It would be more sportsmanlike to take 200. "More sportsmanlike," said Buck grimly, "but a great deal less humane. We are not artists, and streets purple with gore do not catch our eye in the right way." "It is pitiable," said Auberon. "With 5 or 6 times their number, there will be no fight at all." "I hope not," said Buck, rising and adjusting his gloves. "We desire no fight, your Majesty. We are peaceable business men." "Well," said the King wearily, "the conference is at an end at last." And he went out of the room before anyone else could stir. 40 workmen, 100 Bayswater halberdiers, 200 from South and 3 from North Kensington, assembled at the foot of Holland Walk, and marched up it, under the general direction of Barker, who looked flushed and happy and full dress. At the end of the procession a small and sulky figure lingered like an urchin. It was the King. "Barker," he said at length, appealingly, "you are an old friend of mine. You understand my hobbies as I understand yours. Why can't you let it alone? I hoped that such fun might come out of this Wayne business. Why can't you let it alone? It doesn't really so much matter to you. What's a road or so? For me it's the one joke that may save me from pessimism. Take fewer men and give me an hour's fun. Really and truly, James, if you collected coins of humming birds, and I could buy one with the price of your road, I would buy it. I collect incidents, those rare, those precious things. Let me have one. Pay a few pounds for it. Give these Notting Hillers a chance. Let them alone." "Auberon," said Barker kindly, forgetting all royal titles in a rare moment of sincerity, "I do feel what you mean. I have had moments when these hobbies have hit me. I have had moments when I have sympathised with your humours. I have had moments, though you may not easily believe it, when I have sympathised with the madness of Adam Wayne. But the world, Auberon, the real world, is not run on these hobbies. It goes on great brutal wheels of facts, wheels on which you are the butterfly, and Wayne is the fly on the wheel." Auberon's eyes looked frankly at the others. "Thank you, James. What you say is true. It is only a parenthetical consolation to me to compare the intelligence of flies somewhat favourably with the intelligence of wheels. But it is in the nature of flies to die soon, and the nature of wheels to go on for ever. Go on with the wheel. Good bye, old man." And James Barker went on, laughing with a high colour, slapping his bamboo on his leg. The King watched the tail of the retreating regiment with a look of genuine depression, which made him seem more like a baby than ever. Then he swung round and struck his hands together. "In a world without humour," he said, "the only thing to do is eat. And how perfect an exception! How can these people strike dignified attitudes and pretend that